Hi folks, hope everybody's okay. I just want to make a video. Every now and again I make political videos, and this is a very important political video. Doesn't give me any joy to make this video, but it's kind of things that I've been seeing, thinking about, and you take it or leave it. But I hope that this video might be seen by ordinary people, academics, politicians, business people, various political activists of all sides, religious groups, etc. And I hope people see this video and please share it, click it, spread it around, because I think it's an important video for us today. We're supposed to be living in a liberal democracy where everybody has freedom of speech and certain inalienable rights in our UK. But I do feel that the signs of the decay of our democracy are there to be seen. I believe that history repeats itself, and during the time of the Nazis, when Hitler was growing in power from the early 1930s, he was seen as a bit of a crazy dude. But then he gained momentum, and when there was a massive recession in Germany, people began to hear what he had to say and flock to him. And then he was able to wield the German will to do what he wanted to do and to demonize certain groups of people and ostracize them. The same with Chairman Mao did the same. And I believe that there are seeds in our nation at the moment that have been sown that in the next 5 years are preparing the ground for the demise of our Western democracy in our British culture and also in Europe. So I just want to talk about those seeds, what have been sown, and you as the establishment need to think about what I'm saying. If there's anybody in the establishment that ever hears this video, you really need to think about what I'm saying. Basically, in our British culture, we jettisoned God and the Bible, and we said, no, we don't want to know that. And basically, the establishment, for many years now, has decided to make society in their image. And so we have, at the moment, a kind of neo-Marxist identity politics that has become the dominant narrative in our university campuses, in our Western academic culture, and it's seeped into popular everyday life. It's covered over with identity politics, but that's where it's at. And then what that means is, when you jettison God and throw out God and the Bible, and you start to reinvent society in your image, you as the purveyors of that culture, the leaders of that culture, in a sense you're setting yourself up as God. But what happens is, you then become totalitarian. And as you become totalitarian and dictatorial, people then will rebel against your authoritarianism, and civil war will ensue. And that's exactly what's happening at the moment. There are things that are in place at the moment that are making our society more and more totalitarian. So for example, people are forced to accept identity politics. People are forced to accept against their conscience gay rights, like gay marriage. There are millions of people in this country that don't agree with it, but by law you are forced to accept it. In Canada you're forced to accept gender inclusive language, and that will be coming in the UK soon. You're forced to accept it. You don't have a choice, you're forced to. There's the encouragement by the establishment of thuggish behaviour, like with Antifa going to university campuses, deplatforming people. So they'll go into a university campus and they'll get aggressive, even punch academics who disagree with the prevailing narrative of the time. And the state has not lambasted this, but allows this to continue, and it's also in momentum in the Labour Party, this kind of aggressive leftist activity. That doesn't bode well for the future, because you're going to have in the next 5 years these thuggish elements on the left growing in strength and demonizing more and more people and being violent more and more to people. That's sowing the seeds of your own demise as the establishment. The next one is freedom of speech. The locking up of Paul Golding and Jada is basically an erosion of free speech. Basically what will happen there is the ultra-right will go underground, and you'll not destroy them, but they'll emerge in the next 5 years stronger than they've ever been. And if there is a crash in the economy and people are not getting what they want from the elites, they will turn to the ultra-right. And that will not be good, in the sense that you'll then have three opposing camps. You'll have a very violent left, a very aggressive right, and then a very aggressive Islamic extremism, and that will bring violence on the streets of our country and destabilise our democracy even more. The way to deal with the ultra-right, whether you agree or disagree with them, is to enter into dialogue and debate. It's only by dialogue and debate can you defeat your opponents. And if your cause is right, you will defeat your opponents by reason and evidence, not by demonizing them and ostracizing them and putting them in prison. You're actually sowing the seeds of your own demise as Western democracy. The policing today has become political. Policing is becoming arbitrary. Rather than the police following the law, there are many good police officers, don't get me wrong, I respect many in the police, but there is identity politics being rammed down police throat. They're being brainwashed, and so very often the police now are very arbitrary. They will treat certain groups in a special capacity, and certain other groups won't get the protection that they need. So for example, at Hyde Park, the Christians get abused there violently. Other people who are not Muslims will get violently abused, but nothing is done to protect them. But yet the Muslim community at Hyde Park are protected. And this kind of arbitrary policing will undermine the state, because people will begin to want to revolt against the police because they see that the state is not protecting them. So these are just some of the seeds, pots boiling under the surface. They're just under the surface at the moment. If we get a few more jihadist attacks in the next few years, if we get a bad economy, there will be an Islamic extremism that will rise and be violent. There will be a right wing that will rise and be violent. There will be a left wing that will rise and be violent. And it will be like Northern Ireland was in the 50s and 60s. And our democracy will be seriously threatened and undermined. And so those who are in the establishment, you need to pull back and you need to rethink what you're doing. If you're going to make society in your image, you then become God. If you become God, you will become totalitarian. You will begin to control and manipulate and then silence people who do not follow your narrative. And then people will revolt against you, and rebellion will ensue and violence will ensue. So you need to return back to your Christian roots. You need to discover who your Christian roots are, what your Christian roots are. And you need to submit to the living God. We're not living in a liberal democracy anymore. We've moved into a very sinister period in our history of British culture. Those like Jordan Peterson and anybody who challenges the dominant narrative of today will be ostracized and demonized. You will not get an opportunity to debate your cause or to give evidence. You'll be punched, you'll be kicked, and you'll be thrown into the gulag. That's where we're heading to in our British culture. And it's frightening. And unless we start to pull up soon, we will enter oblivion. You just wait until the economy crashes. And when that economy crashes, you will see these extremist groups rise in ferocity, and they will rise in violence. And it was because the establishment tried to be God, created a state that was totalitarian, and in the end people rebelled against it. We need to return back to God, folks. God bless you.